After 5 decades of repression, Burma's military leaders seem to be relaxing their iron grip on power. But while their modest reforms divert the world's attention, their resource-driven war against Burma's ethnic rebels has intensified.
They've targeted civilians. They've killed children point blank. The use of forced labor is very common.
We've been to the country's far north, where the Kachin people are fighting a life or death struggle for autonomy.
After 5 decades of military rule and political repression, Burma's generals have stepped aside. A nominally civilian government led by a former general, Thein Sein, has ushered in a series of wide-ranging reforms over the past year. In April, pro-democracy activist Aung San Suu Kyi and her opposition National League of Democracy Party were swept into parliament in historic by-elections. These developments have prompted Western governments to roll back decades of hard-hitting sanctions against the Asian nation, officially known as Myanmar. But deep in northern Burma, along the Chinese border, a brutal civil war between the Burmese military and the Kachin Independence Army, the KIA, has intensified. A 17-year ceasefire collapsed last year when government forces attacked a rebel outpost near a disputed dam site.
The ruling military wants to secure control over the north of the country, where many of the country's natural resources are located, in terms of minerals and timber, hydroelectric power and so on. And they would like to sell that to whoever wants to buy it.
Bertil Lintner is a journalist and author who has covered Burma for more than 30 years. He argues that political reforms in the capital give Burma's generals cover to exploit resources in the backcountry as they have for decades.
The euphoria that we're seeing right now is definitely premature. Burma is a long way from being a democracy. It's a long way from having, solved its ethnic problems.
Over the past year, the conflict in the north has uprooted an estimated 75,000 Kachin civilians.
The so-called reform process has made it possible for the government, and the government means the military, to get away with almost anything. Things that would have been severely criticized for in the past are being ignored by the international community.
Captain Malang Nomai has decades of experience fighting the Burmese military and is responsible for part of the southern battlefront. KIA fighters pass through here en route to a major flashpoint in the conflict. 2 Chinese-funded pipelines that will pump oil and gas from the Indian Ocean to China next year. Captain Nomai's men routinely exchange small arms and mortar fire with the Burmese army outpost less than 1,200 meters away. The captain says the Burmese army's attacks on Kachin civilians stoke his resolve to hold the front line.
The Burmese army often moves into Kachin villages. They've targeted civilians.
Matthew Smith works for Human Rights Watch. He authored a March report that details war crimes committed by government forces.
They've killed children point blank. We've documented that. Rape and sexual violence are common against Kachin women by Burmese army soldiers. The use of forced labor is very common.
The fighting and abuses are emptying Kachin villages at an alarming rate. Father Thomas Gumrayong is the parish priest for several Kachin villages 25 miles north of Myitkyina, the government-controlled capital of Kachin State. His parishioners have fled their homes as fighting rages nearby over another driver of the conflict, a Chinese-funded hydropower project, the Myatsone Dam. Burmese authorities vowed the project would bring prosperity to the region. In fact, 90% of the electricity produced by the dam will go to China.
If they make the dams, the Kachin people's gardens and farm also covered by water.
Avoiding police checkpoints near the dam site, we soon reached Tang Pre, the village of Father Thomas's parish.
This is the first church in Kachin State.
We moved to here 1952. We started these compound areas. And they opened the first Catholic school and the education and health care for the mountain areas.
Since the dam project began, his congregation has all but disappeared.
Before, there's over 700 people staying here. Now, just only 21.
The few people who remain risk arrest by patrolling Burmese army units and are in hiding.
If you want to stay, you can go in the forest and stay.
The Burmese military has forcibly moved 12,000 Kachin villagers to a pair of camps built by the state-owned Chinese power company that's bankrolling the Myatsone Dam project. The company claims these camps are model villages with new homes, health clinics, and schools. But residents are angry their ancestral lands were taken from them and say they can no longer earn a living. With the villagers gone, gold mining and logging enterprises with close ties to the military now operate on Kachin lands near the dam site. A company known as Northern Star Trading now reportedly controls who is allowed to mine and log in the region.
There are gold mines everywhere.
One community leader, who fears Burmese government reprisals, spoke with us about Northern Star.
It has to pay a certain portion of what they get from the mining business, from logging business, to the police, to the soldiers, to the army officers, to the generals, and not the commander, of course. British, he has the lion's share, of course.
Despite promises of prosperity for all, most Kachin are frustrated by the corruption and their exclusion from the region's economic development projects. In a bid to establish his reformist credentials, President Sain gave orders last year to halt work on the Myatsone Dam. But locals insist work by companies with strong ties to Burma's former military junta has never stopped.
The Chinese cleaning these areas. The workers are HRO from Myanmar, HRO, and Chinese HRO. They're working together here.
Asia World is headed by Stephen Law, a known drug warlord accused of money laundering by the U.S. government.
Companies like Stephen Law's Asia World would win all the contracts to build the basic infrastructure that surrounded the dam, surrounded the pipeline.
Sean Turnell is a leading expert on Chinese economic interests in Burma, including hydroelectric projects and fuel pipelines that will supply much-needed energy to China.
Typically, the pipeline itself and the actual dam were built by Chinese state-owned enterprises. So there was a very close relationship, not only between the Chinese state-owned enterprises and the Burmese government, but also the cronies attached to the Burmese government.
He says the benefits of Chinese investment have been siphoned off by the military, bypassing the Kachin.
They've witnessed decades now of having their resources extracted, their agricultural produce, etc., taken away, and this causes incredible animosity.
Sumlak Gunma is the Kachin Independence Army's vice chief of staff. To reach him, we were smuggled across the border from China into Liza, the KIA's administrative capital. Nearby fighting has emptied the city. While Chinese projects are a major source of tension here, China remains a lifeline for the KIA. The KIA war chest largely depends on taxes from black market trade and products from teak to televisions. Basic goods such as rice and medicines must be imported. And when KIA fighters are badly wounded, they are sent to Chinese hospitals. For years, China has walked a fine line, playing both sides.
It has always been of utmost importance for the Chinese, strategically, to control Burma.
Burma not only offers China natural resources, but access to Indian Ocean ports.
Across the border in China, you have 3 provinces, Yunnan, Sichuan, and Guizhou, with a combined population of more than 100 million people, who, for their development, will be dependent on an outlet through another country, and in this case, it would have to be Burma.
In Naypyidaw, the Burmese capital, members of the military's political party argue that major business deals with Chinese companies are vital to the economic growth of their country. U Teu is Secretary General of the ruling Union Solidarity and Development Party, whose leaders are mostly ex-generals from the former military junta. Teu is a former general himself. Teu claims the recent wave of democratic reforms are real and not a ploy to advance the economic interests of the military. He blames the KIA for the violence in Kachin State, but believes a deal can be reached. But peace talks are going nowhere, and the humanitarian crisis is worsening. These children have joined thousands of displaced Kachin living in Maizhiyang on the Chinese border.
Some are orphans. Their fathers are dead in the fighting, and some are, their mother was passed away. Sometimes in the nighttime, very young children are crying.
Mei Liang started a grassroots relief organization for waves of displaced Kachin last year. Thousands of uprooted Kachin civilians have also taken refuge in Liza. Newcomers pour in each week, requiring the construction of new shelters by the KIA's political wing, which oversees the camps. Residents survive on meager rations of rice, salt, and whatever else they can scrounge. Katum Lu, a mother of 6, fled to Liza last year after Burmese artillery barrages hit their village. When her husband and brother-in-law went back to retrieve some belongings, they were killed by Burmese troops. Magang Lokam, a 68-year-old rice farmer, has been stranded in camp for more than a year.
The Burmese army comes into a village and completely destroys all of the civilian property. And this, of course, leads the civilians to flee toward the Kachin army. And when the Kachin army has to take care of 20 or 30, or in this case, 45,000 displaced people, this is drawing their attention away from fighting the war.
The KIA is vastly outnumbered and outgunned and needs every able body it can muster. At a KIA training camp not far from Liza's refugee camps, new generations of Kachin are asking themselves whether they want to be victims or volunteers. This 30-year-old recruit, formerly a nurse, is one of them. This recruit, who requested his identity be concealed, is an ethnic Han from eastern China who heard about the Kachin struggle at a Sunday service. Unlike the Burmese army, which is largely made up of Buddhists, the majority of Kachin are Christians. KIA recruits like him will have to tread some of the most heavily mined areas in the world.
In Kachin State, landmines have been laid since the conflict began in June. They are being laid by both parties to the conflict. We're already seeing people fleeing their villages and stepping on landmines.
Both sides are using tactics in violation of international law.
The Burmese army is using, in some cases, children as young as 14 to porter or carry materials on the front lines of conflict. What's common in those areas on the Kachin army side are children who have some sort of streak of vengeance in them with regard to the Burmese army.
General Gun Ma says he's not using children on the front lines, but that the KIA remains stretched thin and is facing difficult odds. Recent advances by the Burmese army toward Liza have forced his staff to relocate their command center to a hotel, a short walk from the Chinese border. What's indisputable is that other areas where the government is signing peace deals are not as resource-rich as Kachin State.
The Burmese government acknowledges that this is very lucrative territory, and I think this is part of the reason why we're seeing the Burmese army advance on Kachin State at a time when the government is signing peace deals with a number of other ethnic groups.
The military and its political party blame the lack of a deal on hardliners in the Kachin Independence Army. Teu could not explain why Northern generals continue to ignore President Sane's calls to stop fighting. Yet he rejects charges they will use any means necessary to control Kachin's resources. So there are absolutely not widespread human rights abuses being committed by the Burmese military now?
The human rights violations that are happening in this war are overwhelmingly being perpetrated by the Burmese army. with respect to the Army's activities and the Army's abuses in Kachin State, the civilian government does bear responsibility for the impacts of the military in those areas.
The Chinese could influence the conflict in Kachin State if they wanted to, and if they knew how to do it. They tried to pull strings within the military, because they also have people there who have been on their side all along.
At the same time, China's efforts to downplay the human costs of the conflict are exacting a heavy toll. To date, more than 10,000 Kachin refugees have fled into China, some of whom were captured on this undercover footage shot by a relief worker. It's a problem the Chinese government doesn't want exposed, so that China can escape obligations under international law to allow the United Nations and relief agencies access inside its borders. Instead, according to human rights groups, China is sending thousands of refugees back across the border into harm's way. The Chinese government refused our request for an interview. Meanwhile, the U.S. government is encouraging Western companies to do business in Burma.
Today, we say to American business, invest in Burma and do it responsibly.
Dozens of top American firms, including GE, Chevron, Boeing, GM, Google, and Goldman Sachs, are already on the ground. The State Department declined our request for an interview to discuss U.S. investment in Burma.
What we're seeing is the usual suspects, I guess, of big energy companies. We know that Chevron, of course, has had a long role in Burma, and certainly they're looking at their operations there and expanding them and so on. A lot of the big financial services firms are very interested in Burma.
The rush to invest is not slowed despite warnings from someone who knows Burma's shadowy politics all too well.
In my own country, hostilities have not yet ceased in the far north.
After more than 2 decades under house arrest by the Burmese military, Aung San Suu Kyi gave her long overdue Nobel Prize acceptance speech in June. She cautioned foreign governments and businesses to move carefully until conflicts with the Kachin and other ethnic minority groups are resolved.
Burma is a country of many ethnic nationalities, and faith in its future can be founded only on a true spirit of union.
The international optimism surrounding changes that are happening in Burma is in some ways understandable because the country's just been suffering under military rule for so long. The Kachin right now cannot share in any of that optimism. Their lives right now are worse than they've been in 2 decades.
The legitimacy that the West is giving the present regime through statements, investment, easing sanctions and so on, are actually prolonging the conflict because they're not looking at finding a solution to Burma's ethnic problems, its political problems, and instead they're looking for an easy way out.
The latest round of informal talks between General Gun Ma and the Burmese collapsed in June, and there's no sign the conflict will end anytime soon. Every few weeks, a new class of KI recruits graduates. As the soldiers pack, commanders on the front lines eagerly await their arrival. With a shortage of manpower and a grueling, open-ended conflict, it's not clear when they'll next see home. The same can be said for legions of displaced Kachin, caught in the middle of a hidden war with no end in sight.